fit a catch can and breather plate to an RS mk3 or Focus ST mk3. Flat blade, trim tool, small flat blade or a pick, a file, 3mm Allen key, quarter drive ratchet, 7mm quarter drive socket, 10mm quarter drive socket, quarter drive extension, pair of side cutters, 8mm quarter drive socket, Stanley blade or a sharp knife, some 243 Loctite, and a dash spanner. Engine cover off. You want to take your airbox out, so lift this flap up, pull it off, unclip this, unplug the electrical connector, both hose clamps off. And lift the airbox up as one piece. Pull this hose off, just gives you a bit more room. Pull this shroud off, it's just clipped in. Unclip the secondary release from the bonnet cable, just move the cable like that and unclip it. Tuck it out of the way. Do the same for the first one. Unplug the electrical connector. Remove the 10mm holding the AC line onto the bonnet latch bracket, and then remove the two 10mm, one each side, holding the bonnet latch to the slam panel. So we need to move this AC bracket outwards further, and you can't because it's held in with a tang there and a tang there. So what you need to do is chop this tang off fully there, and then this one, just chop this little nubbin bit off. And we're just going to file a couple of mil off this bracket here, just for a bit of extra clearance. Unclip the purge line. And there's a connector down here, which is a bit of a prick to show you, so I'll show you off car. Unplug your map sensor. Loosen this hose clamp at the throttle body. Disconnect this multi-plug by pushing down on the tab and you'll hear it click. Using a trim tool, remove the multi-plug from the manifold. Remove the second multi-plug from the manifold with the trim tool. Pop the third connector off the manifold. Now before we pull the manifold off, there's dust, bits of crap floating around. You don't want it floating back into the engine. So just take a clean rag, block off the intake pipes, nothing can get in there, blow it off with an air line. Remove the 5 bolts holding the inlet manifold to the engine. They're all 10mm. You can use a deep quarter drive 10mm, or I like to use a shallow one with a little UJ, just makes it easy for that side one. Pull the inlet manifold back slightly and it will give you access to get your arm down there to unplug the throttle body and to unplug the Pcv connection. I'll show you the Pcv connection off engine. As soon as you've got the manifold off, take a clean rag, put it in the boost pipe, so if anything drops in there, it won't fall down in. So with this Pcv connection, you just squeeze the two sides. I've just plugged this throttle body back in just so I can show you how to disconnect it. There's this little red tang. You want to pull it back with your thumbnail, push down on the connector, and then it'll come out. Take some masking tape, and you're just going to cover the intake ports on the cylinder head. Now you can take the injector cover off, because it's full of dust, blow it all off with an air line. Now you're going to remove the 8mm bolts that go all the way around the breather plate and remove it from the block. Using a small pick or a baby flat blade, there's a tang each side, which you've got to release to then remove the Pcv valve. Once you've got it off, pull the PCV valve out. Now we don't need this pipe, but we do need the two fittings. There's two ways of doing this. If you've got a heat gun, you can just apply some heat. It will soften the plastic and it will pull off. If you don't have a heat gun, you can actually just slice down the pipe with a blade. Pull it off like that. Take your two Allen key bolts out. Take your PCV valve. Make sure it's all clean, the O-ring's sitting as it should do. Pop it in the plate. Take your bracket, pop that on top. And then you just want to put a tiny little dab of thread lock, just some 243 on both the tiny little bolts. Make sure the valve is sitting straight, just hold it down with one finger while you tighten up the bolts. Take one of your lengths of hose and push it onto the fitting. It is a very tight fit, so just keep working it on. It's all the way snug, like that. Now, if you opted for the replacement gasket, you can fit your brand new one. If you're reusing your original one, just clean it up real good and just fit the gasket in. Now we can refit this back to the car. With a clean rag, just give the area a wipe around so that there's no oil on the mating face. Tighten the bolts up, starting in the middle and working way outwards. Refit your injector cover plate. Take the other connector and your other bit of hose, just push the hose on. Then just take your connector, click it back onto the manifold. Refit the manifold back onto the car. Don't forget to take your rag out for the boost pipe. Now it's easiest to line the throttle body up with the boost pipe and gently kind of drop it in, then bolt the manifold on, and then plug in your connector for your throttle body. Plug your throttle body and your other electrical connectors back in. And now lift up your boost pipe and tighten up that hose clamp. Refit this line. Plug the map sensor back in. Refit your airbox feed. It just clips in, there's a little clip there and there. Take your bonnet latch, take your mounting bracket for your catch can and the bolt. We're going to put it through and we're going to bolt this back on. Take the modified aircon line bracket that we've chopped the mount bits off, put your bolt through, put your stack of washers on and bolt it back to the latch. Put our other 10mm in. Plug our connector back in. Now refit both of your bonnet latch release cables. Now, because we had to remove one mounting clip here from this coolant hose, this is going to rub on the catch can. So that's why we had to move the aircon line out. So what you want to do is just position this hose up here so that it's not kinking, it's not going to rub on anything, and you want to run a cable tie around the plastic and then just a cable tie around there. Refit the airbox. Pull the rag out. Refit the hose. Plug the brake back pipe back in. Plug the electrical connector back in. Take your adapter fittings, pop the O-ring on the large side, screw them into the catch can. Now you want to fully tighten them up. If you've got an aluminium dash spanner, use that. If you've only got a normal spanner, just put some insulation tape on it, otherwise it's going to mark the aluminium fitting. Now we can mount our catch can up. Take dash fittings and push them onto the hoses. Okay, so you want to take the longer hose, which is the one that comes from the PCV, and we're going to pop it up through here. But we're going to go behind the aircon line, so push it down. Bring it up. And now your manifold one, just going to push it down, feed it between the two coolant lines, and tighten fully up. Final checks, make sure you've got enough clearance. Make sure you have clearance, at least a finger between your aircon line and your catch can, otherwise that'll rub a hole. Make sure that this coolant hose isn't kinked. That's good. Make sure nothing's going to rub a hole on anything. The most important is ensuring that you've got that clearance. If you don't, you can hold the aircon line with one hand and with the other just gently bend it a little bit.